regarding Darashikoh. So here I am. So I would start with when I saw from there, I'm the Darashikoh, no? I'm Darashikoh. So I was around only, and I saw Rupa ji taking classes with everyone. So everyone was so lucky to gain so much of knowledge from her. So I thought I must come down and tell everyone that I also have a connection with Upanishad. तो जब मैं यहाँ आ ही गया तो सोचा कि अपनी थोड़ी सी छोटी सी एक कहानी बता दूँ. So everyone knows that I was the firstborn son of Shahjahan's, and I was heir apparent. He had already thought that I would be taking his throne whenever he wanted or when he was not there. So I had three more younger brothers. I had many others also, but these were there who were always in the fight of this throne. And out of them, Aurangzeb was the most jealous one, even though very brave, but then he always wanted the throne. So he didn't like my claim, which was given directly to me. So I was born in 1615, and I was young enough when I got married. That was 1633. So from the very young age, I studied everything else, like all princes were told to study something like. So I loved to study. So I studied Quran, I studied Persian poetry, I studied calligraphy, history. So out of which, mostly, I mean, when I read Quran, so my questioning mind started asking too many questions out of that Quran. So I would come straight to the crux of it, that rather than getting into the whole story, that what I found very striking there or something for me to question, that in Quran it was said that there is no land without prophet, and the secret scripture. So I always felt that must be true with Hindustan as well. So I mean, I just didn't read Quran because I was told to read, and this is what is written and I accept. So I started thinking, okay, what does it mean? Then there was something else also indicated there, that when Quran says that there is no land without prophet, means they also thought there was only one God. But for them, it's not. Whatever the name is, there is one God. It was, they had just, their God was one God. So it was like that. And the next thing that they had spoken about, that Quran had spoken about, Kitab al-Maknoon, that was the secret scripture which Lord had told, Lord of the worlds had given them. Who he gave, how it came in the Quran, nothing was there. So this is what I wanted to know. So then after getting married, so once I visited Kashmir with my wife, there I met Sufi saint Mullah Shah. So Mullah Shah was a disciple of, he himself was also very learned, and he was disciple of Mia Mir. So he was the greatest of Sufi saints, and in fact he was called to Amritsar to lay the foundation stone for Golden Temple. So he was of that caliber and that stature. So Mullah Shah mentioned once that this is how there is that Hindu's sacred book, which is full of, I mean, all those secrets which you have been wanting to know, because since he had this kind of mind, so he was questioning him also about number of things. So he mentioned it. So the moment he said so he felt very happy. So he came back and he assembled number of Pandits and all learned people from Benares, and he went to Delhi. And Delhi at Nigambodh, he had his palace named Manzile Nigambodh. So there, this was the case of, he had gone in 1640, and then he took number of years studying all these faiths, and then sitting there, he started understanding the meaning of each and every word of Upanishads. And then when he was totally convinced, and not he was waiting for the translation, but he wanted to know the meaning, so he kept on listening to them and assimilating all the knowledge. And he was absolutely convinced that the secret book they were talking about, that was definitely Upanishad, because he found all those answers in Upanishad what he was looking for. So he said this secret book, the scripture has to be Upanishad, because in Upanishad it is written that was the secret given to those sages, and sages have, from the word of mouth, orally have told very, very few people at a time, and those in turn the next very few disciples are there, and this is how it has come. And a time came, I mean, it came as Vedas, and then a time came when it was written down as Upanishad in this form. So, and these were never called even the book, they were always called texts, because they said, I mean, if you go by literal meaning also, this is just, I mean, the knowledge, the whole lot of knowledge, but not in the form of a bound book or something. So he translated into, finally he translated into Persian with his own hands. This was in 1656 he did so. So I didn't live much after that. When I translated it into Persian, by then, by 1657, my father, Shah Jahan, he fell ill. Immediately there was the session, everyone started, I mean, they were all wanting to either have a battle or just given the throne to them. So Aurangzeb fought a battle with me, with my father alongside, because by then my father had already recuperated, and he had thought that now there wouldn't be any fight for the throne, but it was still there. And then my father was imprisoned in his own palace till death, and I had to leave Agra. I came to Delhi, and from there to Multan, Lahore, Sindh, where not, everywhere I went, and finally somewhere in Gujarat I was captured and beheaded. And my head, I believe it was, not I believe, I know, and my God knows, that it was presented to my father, Shah Jahan, saying that his son has remembered him, that's why he sent a gift to him. And when he opens it, he sees it, and he faints there only. So my heart really went out for him, but I couldn't do anything. So, and there is very little I would add to this, that I felt very sad that with me, my Persian translation of Upanishad would have vanished from the earth, because Aurangzeb was not the kind who would keep it safely, or I mean, he would value it at all. So there was one French doctor who was on the panel of these royal medical staff, and as well other Ratnas of theirs. So this was called Francois Bernet. So this chap, he somehow, he lay hand on one of the copies of this Persian translation. Persian translation was called Sir-e-Akbar. So he carried this copy with him to France, and then I mean, it remained with him for some time, because he had gone from here after almost 12-15 years. So the long time had passed in between. So somehow this copy was still lying there, and then after almost 100 years, the other French person only, he was, ma'am, was he the Indologist? Yeah, so that Indologist, this person called Anquetil Duperron. So he took it and he translated it into Latin. And so through that, at least it got popularized in Europe, and still not much. Now that German Indologist, his name was Arthur Schopenhauer. So he translated it further. So it got translated so many times, but to an extent, the true sense of it remained in that. And now, because he was very, very respected and very renowned person in this field, so people listened to him because he said, this is the ultimate truth text. So read and know the real world and real you. So finally people listened to him, and that's how it got spread in all over Europe. And then obviously it must have been known in the world also after that. So that part gave me real relief. I was very happy in my wherever I was. By till now I have had many births in different forms. So, but now here I am in front of you, and I'm going to go back there. Bye bye.